cancel culture stuff on the right just drives me nuts.
So, as you know, Chip Roy voted to certify the election, and he was not part of the crowd feeding the big lie. Andy Biggs on the complete other end of it, just like feeding all the lies out there. How many Republicans in Congress are privately agreeing with you and Liz Cheney and saying, you're right, I can't say it, but you're right, keep going?
Oh, I think it's well over 50%. And I think, that's just the ones that would feel comfortable to say it privately. There's a lot that are kind of waiting for an organic movement to kind of move on past Trump, but they don't want to necessarily lead it. Again, I don't question that. I understand it. It's a tough position to take, but I've looked at it and said people deserve an alternative competing vision. If the only person you ever hear from is Donald Trump, you can't blame somebody for thinking that is the only vision in the Republican Party. But leadership, it's not about seeing where everybody's going and then just trying to jump in front. It also is about leading people and showing them where to go in a brighter future based on optimism and hope and less on darkness, division, and fear.
So President Trump is going to speak at the CPAC conference this weekend. A source tells CNN that Trump plans to use the speech as a resurgence, a comeback into the world of politics. We're also told that he is going to spend the next few months and years seeking revenge on people like you and Liz Cheney. What do you make of it all?
I mean, it's fine. It's his right to do it. Most former presidents go away for a time and let the next person come in. But, Donald Trump's not like any other former president. I don't think he can stand not being in the spotlight for a moment. So it's fine. I mean, it's his right to do it. People will make a choice, but the important thing is to show that competing vision of courage and truth. And so today, for instance, Peter Meyer also voted to impeach. He and I disagree on a lot, but he believes in courage and truth. And we're going to do something on Clubhouse today at 5 o'clock, and we'll end up uploading it as a podcast later. But just talking about what is courage and truth in politics. What does it mean? Why has it been missing? Why is this really a new way forward? It's just the first in a number of series, I think, of conversations that need to happen. By the way, not just for Republicans, but for everybody. And go to countryfirst.com, by the way, with a 1 and see what this vision is.
Yeah. I noticed Congressman Meyer, who's a Army veteran, taking a shot at you for being an Air Force veteran in the promotion for that Clubhouse thing, which will be right after this show. I want to ask you about another issue, because the two of the less positive traits of Trumpism, and there are a lot of traits, and some of them are good, but two of the less positive, lies and indecency. And I want to talk to you for a second about indecency, because Democratic Congresswoman Marie Newman, who has a transgender daughter, put up a transgender supporting flag outside her office because Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the conspiracy theorist and bigot, has been out there opposing the Equality Act, and she works right across the hall. And it was an idea to say, hey, we support these rights. Now, obviously, the legislation aside, Congresswoman Greene responded by hanging a sign outside her office that says, quote, there are two genders, male and female, trust the science. That's not actually what the science says. But she also went on to Twitter and referred to Congresswoman Newman's daughter as her, quote, biological son, which is really a hideous thing to say, given how much abuse transgender kids and adults already face in this country. You called Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments sad and garbage. Where's the rest of your party? This is just basic decency.
Yeah, and I don't even like giving her the air of it, but it's, in the absence of her speaking, that's considered basically the Republican position. I think everybody needs to come out on that. You can disagree on legislation.
Right.
But let's get back to some decency. I talked to Representative Newman today. She called me and to thank me for my statement. I said, look, we can disagree on a lot of issues, but we're humans, right? Representative Newman's daughter goes through a lot of difficult times. You don't go throw something in her face. These are human beings. These are human beings that have their own life journey. And to sit there and say that my goal is retweets and anger and fear and stoking division at the cost of who knows what, and I'll create whatever collateral damage, that's what has to end. And nobody can call that out like somebody in their own party. So that's why I'm calling it out in the Republican Party, because that kind of garbage has got to stop. People are human beings.
Hard to disagree with that, but I'm sure that Congresswoman Green might take issue with your idea of basic decency to human beings. Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, thank you so much. Really appreciate it as always. And you can hear more from Congressman Kinzinger in just a few minutes. He's hosting a Country First conversation with Republican Congressman Peter Meijer of Michigan on Clubhouse. That starts at 5 p.m. Good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
See you, sir. See you.
His speech Sunday, likely just the beginning. New information about what Donald Trump has been planning while golfing, I guess. Then increasing concern about two new homegrown variants of the coronavirus appearing on both coasts. Stay with us. In our Health Lead today, moments ago, President Biden marked the 50 millionth COVID vaccine administered in the U.S. since he took office, saying this is not a victory lap. The U.S. still has a long way to go. Making it worse, as CNN's Erica Hill reports, are new homegrown variants.
A new coronavirus variant identified in New York City and other parts of the Northeast, raising new questions after early research shows it may evade the body's natural immunity and some treatments.
Not all variants are of public health concern. Some variants are just that. They're variants. They're just a little bit different.
Meantime, new studies, not yet peer-reviewed, show a separate variant, first identified in California, may not only be more contagious, but could cause more severe disease.
While we need to be concerned about what we're seeing in New York and California or in other places around the world, we can't take our eye off, to me, what I think is the single most important variant right now in our headlights, and that is this B117, or the UK variant, which is rapidly spreading now throughout the United States.
Both Pfizer and Moderna testing booster shots as vaccine makers work to get ahead of new variants.
This has been one of the really impressive things about the development of these new vaccine platforms, the mRNA ones, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and others as well, is that they can get updated pretty quickly. We think in about 6 to 8 weeks.
About 21.5 million Americans are now fully vaccinated. New York City making up for last week's weather delays.
We're actually adding capacity at a lot of our sites because we have extra vaccine.
That includes new overnight appointments at Citi Field. Vice President Kamala Harris visiting a local D.C. pharmacy.
Good morning. Good morning, doctor.
A new push to address vaccine hesitancy. Also out today, a new ad campaign.
Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed.
Access still a major concern. More states working to meet people where they are, though eligibility is another hurdle. Some grocery store employees in Michigan not included in expanded eligibility for agricultural and food processing workers.
We've been on the front line since it started, and we've been interacting with customers. I'm not saying we're the most important people, but we are. During this pandemic, we were.
And just a note, overall, when we look at the pandemic, these benchmarks, over the last month, average new cases down 57%, hospitalizations dropping more than 50%, and deaths a little bit slower, but those two down about 30%, Jake, in the last month.
All right, Erica Hill in New York, thank you so much. Continuing to cover COVID in our national lead, today New York City middle schoolers are back in class, in person, and city officials say more than 30,000 teachers have been vaccinated. In California, officials are mandating that counties set aside 10% of their vaccine doses for teachers to try to finally get back to in-person learning, but there's no time frame. And there's a Monday deadline in Ohio for students to get back into the classroom. CNN's Bianna Goladriga picks up the latest installment of our series on schools in a time of coronavirus with a tale of two different districts in Ohio.
It's 9:48 a.m. and time for students at Watkins Memorial High School to get to their next class.
I have to say, this is surreal for me to be inside of a high school.
Besides masks and social distancing, it's almost like school before the pandemic hit in Licking County outside of Columbus, Ohio.
High schoolers typically have a lot more freedom than students in the elementary level, but we knew that we could teach them the new routines and procedures, and that is what it's really all come down to.
Less freedom, but they're here, in school, in person, 5 days a week since August.
So try taking this to the other side first.
A lower middle-class Rust Belt town where currently 75% of the district's 4,500 K-12 students are in school full-time.
You gotta go around.
To get here, overcrowded hallways are now one way. Students go outside to change classes and allow in fresh air. They've implemented some of the CDC's guidelines, such as masking, cleaning, and contact tracing. But under the guidance of local health officials, they've foregone other recommendations, most significantly cutting the recommended 6 feet of separation in half.
I'm going to be honest, in the fall, I didn't know what to expect. We are going to be all in. We're going to see what happens. The guidance was 6 feet, and here we are going with 3 feet. I was scared. And now over time, I've seen that the spread is not there like we thought it would be.
K-12 math coach and vice president of the local teachers union, Alicia Sleeper, is frustrated that her own 2 children, who attend a nearby district, don't have a full in-person option like her students do in Licking County.
I would love to see my kids in school because they can use these mitigation strategies.
What is your response to many who argue that you're doing this at the expense of teachers in their lives?
I would ask for teachers to look at the data, to really dive in.
Current enrollment at Watkins Middle School is over capacity, so they've gotten creative with their use of space.
We're currently in our media center, but we've had to use it multitask. We've turned the back half of it into a classroom.
The district has been vaccinating teachers since mid-February. So far, more than 70% have received their first dose.
I don't think that vaccines are required in order to open schools safely.
They have seen positive COVID-19 cases in schools. The school district says it has less than a 2% positivity infection rate of students and staff. And Superintendent Casey Perkins was confident in her decision to open her schools and keep them open.
We haven't had one case all year that has spread from being in schools.
Her message to other school districts still hesitant to reopen? Call me.
Come take a look. Come, tour our schools, see our transition times, take a look at our classrooms, see our cafeteria. Look what we've done that we've had success with, so you can model it for yourself.
A message fully endorsed by sophomore Demaya Brown.
I'm really, really grateful that our district was able to open up and allow us back in the school building, because I can't imagine how hard it must be for students who are online to not be able to interact with their peers or get one-on-one help from their teachers. They somehow made it work pretty seamlessly.
They did make it work. And Jake, in addition to the governor of Ohio, the governors of Virginia and Maryland are also pushing for their schools to reopen, to offer some in-person learning next month. I was floored, as you could see, to see high schoolers acting like normal high schoolers in school, in class. The only thing they were doing was wearing a mask. That was really the only difference, Jake. It can be done. It takes work, but it can be done.
Right. But the key is all of, those implementation measures, walking outside, wearing masks, the distancing. It can't just be ignored. You can't just go back to normal, but it can be done. Fiona Goladriga with our latest installment of School in a Time of COVID. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but in this case, it may be well done with ketchup. How Donald Trump is planning to get back at some of the Republicans who did not support him. In our politics lead, tomorrow, the House of Representatives will vote on President Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, but it is still not clear if the $15 federal minimum wage increase will be included when it hits the Senate. And with 730,000 American workers filing for unemployment benefits for the first time last week, help is needed, as CNN's Phil Mattingly now reports.
I hope Congress passes the American Rescue Plan, which I've been pushing.
President Joe Biden on the eve of the most important vote of his young administration.
The opportunity is there, and the precision of this legislation to directly address the needs of the American people.
The House set to vote on his $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, which would include $1,400 stimulus checks, $170 billion for schools, $160 billion to expand vaccine development and infrastructure, and extensions of crucial unemployment benefits. House Democrats expect to pass the bill on party lines, with Senate Democrats ready to move.
Democrats are preparing to proceed with the urgently needed President Biden American Rescue Plan.
But with a major fight looming over the $15 minimum wage.
We will pass a minimum wage bill. We must pass a minimum wage bill.
Two Senate Democrats, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, opposed to the provision. The White House with no margin for error in a chamber divided 50-50. For now, all eyes on someone most Americans have never even heard of, the Senate parliamentarian who will decide whether the proposal runs afoul of Senate rules.
That's the next step, and we'll have to go from there.
For now, a waiting game, with Biden sticking to his support.
The president included an increase in the minimum wage because